This is Impact Healthcare, people and strategies that are disrupting the health benefits industry. And now, here's your host, healthcare benefits industry expert and the originator of the transparent health benefits movement, Lester Morales.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Impact Healthcare. And I've got somebody that I've been working closely with for the last year, and I've seen an opening of the eyes and mind. And I think the fun part about this conversation is very rarely in the employee benefits and health insurance world do you get to have a win-win all the way around. Normally, if you're saving a client, an employer money, you're having to raise deductibles and out-of-pockets for employees. So employees are losing, but clients, getting a cheaper cost. Or if you're doing something as a broker, the client's not winning it. It's all these like tugging and pulling of I win and you lose. And so I think, Amanda, give us an introduction to you and your great organization. And the first question I'm going to ask you, what jazzes you about the conversation and the everyday thing that you get to do now?
Well, thanks for having me, Lester. Amanda Banner with People's First Insurance, based in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and an office over in Tennessee now. Been in the insurance business for 24 years. And with that came some burnout for what you had just mentioned. Here I come in. It's like a black cloud is hanging over me when I go to see my clients because I'm coming in with double-digit rate increases, but I can solve that if we just jack up the out-of-pocket maximums. And then I met you, and you rejuvenated me and gave me an option to consider going down the proactive health plans world and finding a real solution for my clients that not only means we can make their benefits better, so after a couple of years, we're kind of going to lower deductibles or eliminate them completely, but save them money. And that's what has jazzed me these days.
So Amanda, I love this conversation. I actually posted something on LinkedIn, and it was funny. I was taking a picture of the beach and the sun was rising, and it just so happened that in the picture, I saw my side view mirror, and it was such an interesting perspective in that picture. I didn't mean to do it, but it was, hey, you're either seeing the future and in the front, and it was this beautiful sunrise right on the beach, or you're looking in the rear view, in the side mirror, and you're looking backwards. I think one of the things that I think it's really important to start off with is a kudos to you, but I want you to talk about that level of uncertainty. Let's call it imposter syndrome. Let's call it, I'm scared to have a conversation about something that maybe I've never done, or I'm not a domain expert in it. Right. You faced that, but you also raised your hand and said, hey, with a rising tide, all of the boats lift. And if I can deliver value through bringing other experts into my clients, talk about that internally, and then I'd love for you to talk about it externally. What did your clients and your prospects say about it, that you're bringing in somebody who's handing a different business card or whatnot?
Yeah, I think how I reacted initially and how my clients react now, or as I've had these discussions, is pretty much exactly the same. It's like you come in and you don't want to say the S word, and I mean self-insured and insurance in this case, because you think, oh no, only large companies do that. And even I thought, well, my clients can't afford to pay for $1 million cancer claim. They just don't have those kind of funds laying around. And I just couldn't in my mind understand that, no, there's other ways to protect them. They're not going to have to do it. It's not that scary until we started being transparent with the discussion and pulling everything out and saying, no, you're going to pay for this stop loss carrier, and you're not going to have to pay over a certain amount in a worst case scenario. And look, we're going to tell you what this prescription drug costs. we're going to tell you where else you can go and get it for less price. And I think as I started to grasp that and felt safe to bring it to my clients, then I was able to say to them, not only I know exactly how you feel because I was there a few years ago, but let me talk about the myths that are probably in your head, and let's just go ahead and break those all down right now. And their confusion, their frustrations were similar to mine. And so one, being mad about their rates and everything was great, because so was I as a broker. So we started there. But then just saying it doesn't have to be what you think it is. It's really not that. You know, I'm not expecting you to be the big box company of the world running this program. We can break it down if you have 50 employees, 100 employees, and do it in a different manner. So it really just goes back to frustration and fear. I guess those two F's. But it also makes the conversation fun because I'm relatable. I know how they felt. I know how nervous they were because I was the same way. But there's just no denying when you kind of get into it, how much it's going to help to have the conversation.
Right. Already in this podcast, we've said F words and S words. So,
you asked me to come, so you knew what you were getting. And I'm doing pretty good, I think.
So I want to I think I want to take the conversation completely unrehearsed. So this is going to be fun. I want to take the conversation. You said the word myths, and you had some in your own head in regards to preconceived notions, what I thought was available, what could really happen. You learned through them, and now you're able to deliver that value. Let's take a couple of those and talk about what is it. And so let's start with self-funding. So your myth buster in that conversation was, hey, only big companies can self-fund. And, it's scary for those smaller employers. Talk about what you learned from that, and then switch that conversation if an employer was listening to this that might have those same myths. How do you have that conversation with them now?
I kind of start the conversation for the most part with, I'm not here to wave a magic wand and fix all your problems. And this isn't going to be all rainbows and unicorns. Every time there's a change can be a little difficult, but we're going to educate you on how this works. And you're going to feel more comfortable with it by the time we're done. And what I mean by that is, you're used to having your card with your Buka logo on it, and the doctor or the nurse or the receptionist even, they know where that money's coming from and where it's going. Well, there's a level of confusion involved with backing away from that because it's change. But when they learn you're still going to utilize that same network or the same network, I'm not asking you to go to kind of a generic plan that no one's going to, accept this insurance. And then what's the answer? Here's how we do it. And I just go back to, I just think the biggest thing they think is we can't afford to do this. And so how I have that conversation, and I go back to the magic wand statement, my rates are probably going to be exactly what your total annual rates are this year. They're probably not going to offer but so much savings initially, so don't expect that. Now, if I come back and they were way lower, then great. But what I say to them is the way we're going to structure this and how we're going to fund this means at the end of the year, if you did listen to me, if we do work on this together, whatever you didn't pay out is going to stay in your checking account. So don't come in here with, this preconceived notion that if I don't give you a census or a spreadsheet, some numbers that are much cheaper than what you have now, that I'm not winning in this case. I want you to get rid of that idea because that's what everyone's used to. Go ahead and quote it. Go ahead and quote it. Look at this proposal and look at what your maximum liability could be. And let's prepare for that. But what if it comes at your expected? How would you feel if this $40,000 less sat in your account? So I think, like you said, debunking those myths, but let's reel this in. Let's have realistic expectations. Let's not wave a flag like this is going to be, some miracle saver in the first year or whatnot, and just keep it honest with them.
So I love the conversation because, life's all about management of expectations, right? And the reality of it is, you've heard me say this a million times, right? The definition of insanity, right? Continuing to do the same thing as expected. So it's like, of the decision you were going to make before we started having this conversation, what changed that is going to give you a better opportunity to save money? It's like people don't correlate the decision of healthcare and health insurance are two totally different things. Yeah. If I continue to hand my premium, they call it revenue, to a company, how am I expecting their cost to go down? So your talk track of, hey, we're changing the funding mechanism. You become the insurance company in a way. I'm going to protect you of that. And hey, look, your worst case scenario pretty much is the same. But if you win, which I think every client has experienced that year where it's like, well, wait a second. I saw my claims experience. It was $400,000, but I paid $1 million in premium. Does anybody ever get any money back for that? And so I like the conversation. Now, if I'm the CFO or the HR, let's go CFO. Let's go financial in that conversation. You had that conversation with me. And you're like, all right, well, max is here and expected is here. And I say, well, it must be lucky, or just pure luck when things happen to come in at expected versus max. You can't change a claim. What's now your new rebuttal? Maybe that myth of you can't actually impact the cost of healthcare.
Well, so that's the part when I say I was rejuvenated, that rejuvenates me, because there is a way. And I tell my clients, starting with the CFO, the entire C-suite, and work on down, you need to be a consumer of your healthcare. And you've used the shopping cars example, so I take that one from you sometimes. But why do you, when your doctor says, hey, go to this nice new family or nice new big old remodeled hospital and go get an MRI, are we so hesitant to say why and just go? So what I mean by be consumers of your healthcare is you didn't know it cost a couple $1,000s for you to go get that there. But if I tell you can get the same test results at this standalone facility for a couple $100, that's what I mean by being a consumer of your healthcare. And if you, CFO, like that message and will help pass it on down to your employees, then that's how we're going to save the money. That's how we're going to train ourselves to think differently. You will literally do it anywhere else. If a grocery store has a certain soda on sale, you're not buying your soda there or at the other place. You're going there that week to get the soda. You just saw it. So why aren't you doing that with your healthcare?
It's so funny that you said that example. Like this morning alone, I remember I was driving to the gym. I passed 2 gas stations going to the gym, and I saw how much it was. And on the way back, it was the further one that I remembered had a 2-penny difference.
And you drove there to get that. Yeah.
100%. So as a consumer, we do it every day. We just are never taught. So the CFO that just heard that statement, and you use the example of the MRI, couple thousand versus couple hundred. What are some other examples that you have witnessed yourself and been able to see of how drastic is the potential cost in one given market from healthcare at this location versus this location?
We recently have created in the Rock Hill, South Carolina area, a contract with a local hospital. And it's similar, like we're talking about the CFO, kudos to the folks over at Piedmont for just wanting to think differently. And that would be another way that we have been able to streamline care is by finding like-minded providers that want to do things differently. And in this case, Rock Hill is very close to Charlotte. For those who don't know, they want to be able to attract not only patients, but quality doctors and everything from the area. So the geographical location definitely benefited. But streamlining now folks to their hospital to get care there because of a relationship we formed and a partnership we've outlined for our clients is just another way we can say, you want to go here, we're going to waive your deductible and out of pocket, which, sorry if I'm going ahead of you a little bit, but that's how we get the employee to say,
love it.
That woman about the insurance said there was a way to access no-cost health care. I don't remember how she said it, but I remember that part or what I was supposed to do. And they can go there for their procedures, surgeries, testing, and we're going to waive the out-of-pocket. But the how or the why is, again, working with like-minded individuals who want to do something different. And if there happens to be anybody in the hospital industry listening, the benefit to them is we're going to pay them within 30 days. They are not going to have to chase down these outrageous out-of-pocket maximums or deductibles. And so we are becoming almost a preferred partnership on their end to not have to do accounts receivable work on $8,000 out-of-pocket maximums that, quite frankly, half those people aren't going to pay anyway.
So I wanna unpack this because obviously,
yeah, sorry, that was a lot.
No, but it's so valuable to understand. So I'm going to restate things in a different package. And so in this conversation we just had, it is, hey, we were able to have a conversation with a hospital and a set of providers that says, let's have a different conversation. And I think that this is something that most people don't understand, that health care and health insurance are two totally different things, number one. And number two, when we think, and so you said it in the beginning, you felt like the black cloud, the grim reaper coming in, and the only tool you had to lower premium was to raise out of pockets, deductibles, coinsurance, etc. What people in the advisory side of the house fail to recognize at times is what we call a deductible or an out-of-pocket. On the other end, that hospital calls that an accounts receivable.
Right.
And so it's a really interesting thing that most people can't walk into that hospital with a $3, $4, $5, $8, $10, $15,000 out-of-pocket and pay that. So they go on a payment plan and they're paying $10 a week for the next gazillion years. Meanwhile, that hospital did all the work. They're having to chase that money. And so again, Econ 101 from college would tell me time value of money. There's a value there. So you guys had a conversation with the hospital, said, okay, you do service. We got people that we want to send to your service place. Why don't we just have a conversation that says, you give me a better deal. We won't charge these people anything. You don't have to collect it. Patient wins, employer wins. Is that a summary of like how that works?
Yeah, and several conversations. But yes, that's a great summary on how we were able to accomplish that with them.
So who loses in that conversation? So I think about this. Let's go with the constituents. The provider, the hospital, and all their doctors get paid faster. They don't have to chase the money. And quite honestly, if I, the patient, don't have a $2,000 out of pocket, I'm more likely to do the things I'm supposed to do to stay healthy. So let's go altruistic with our hearts here. Like, that's actually helping the community get healthier. So the hospital likes it. You told me in that scenario, the employer saves money and the employee saves money.
You got it.
Who loses?
Yeah. It's a win-win-win for everybody.
I mean, let's go back to the beginning part of the conversation. Rejuvenation. I'm an advisor. I'm a broker. I now like the conversations about this. I take the conversation from the provider side because now we're talking win, 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 win. You're the fourth win, right? The advisor on this little square here. I'm the employee. I have choice. So if my doctor, who I've been seeing since, the Mayflower, is at another facility, I don't have to go there. I could still go over here and pay my normal out of pocket. So it's not a mandated thing. It's
right.
An optional carrot versus stick. So the employee wins. They still have choice. They pay less money. The employer saving money. So talk to me about how employers are taking that conversation, or maybe said another way, it sounds like a no-brainer to me, right? So like, I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. Like I get confused and I'm like trying to think like, why in God's green earth wouldn't somebody do that? When you've had the conversation with somebody, what is the potential reason they wouldn't do something like that?
You know, it's funny that you asked me that, because I just met with a client last week who is looking to finalize making the change, but in the meantime has made me their broker. And over again, this was the vice president I was speaking with. He just kept saying, what's the downside? What's the downside? You know, why aren't more people doing this? Exactly why, you know, what you're getting at here. And I just go back to lack of education and the fear of not knowing. But then let's put it on other brokers. We're not talking about it. And or do we have a plan in place solid enough, like we do at People's First, to make our clients successful? Because if you're not working with the right team of advisors and your advisor does not know how to maneuver through this, then it could blow up in your face. It's not going to be successful. And that is very much so why I'm sitting here talking to you. You know, we have aligned ourselves after interviewing multiple people with what I feel is the best I know is the best in the industry on how to pull this off. But that's what it is. It is the fear of the unknown, and you have to partner with the right people, because you don't want to hit that maximum every year. You're not doing any justice. You don't want the little bit of friction your employees feel to outweigh the benefit of, I just had a baby and didn't pay a dime, and that meant my husband could stay home with me for 6 weeks. You want them to feel the good stuff. So you have to be able to combat the friction that goes along with it. And you have to have the right people behind you to be able to do it. And that was my response to him. So it's my response to you. And that's why I say the rainbows and unicorns things, because you have to want to think differently. You have to have that in you. So maybe you're not frustrated enough. Maybe you need another 20% increase to come down your way. But I think those are the whys. And that's why it's important.
It's such an interesting, you know, I say a lot of the similar things, but hearing somebody else say it as I'm thinking about it, it's that pain threshold, right? The pain of change, right? And you know, I listen to a bunch of podcasts of personal development, right? In the personal world, you would say the pain of regret versus the pain of, you know, being diligent or being responsible or whatever, right? It's like, hey, which one's higher? I'm either going to go to the gym and eat right, or I'm going to regret it. And that's the balance. In this conversation, you know, that pain line is some sort of cost, you know, number, something there. But you know what? It's really interesting. I think the industry, and I'd love your opinion on this. I think the industry ourselves have taught everybody to just put their head in the sand. And so it's not that the pain isn't there. Double-digit rate increases for the last several decades, 20% of our GDP, top 2 or 3 employer expense. Most people can't afford their deductible anyway. 67% of personal bankruptcies happen because of medical expenses. 12 million people a year get misdiagnosed. Right? Like if we were talking about KPIs,
yeah,
like our industry would fail miserably. Right. And so it's an interesting thing that I think you hit the nail on the head. The real conversation of this is education and broadcast. There's not enough people having the conversation. And so aside from the education piece of it, so back to Amanda, right? Amanda 2-3 years ago wouldn't have had this conversation because she didn't know about it or she didn't feel comfortable about it. You yourself took the time to learn it. That's an obstacle. What's the other bridges out there if the audience is other advisors and the audience is employers, knowing what you've been to, what are some of the other things? It's like, don't let this stop you, or hey, Mr. Employer, you should watch out for this. Are there other things that keep people from digging in the new hole, if you will?
Well, I think if you look at the advisor side, you could talk a little bit about the loyalty to the carriers because it's our only income stream up until that point. And I represent those carriers. There's a need for them in places. So I think that would be one hesitation on that end. And with the employers, I just always feel and I don't know if the P&C guys think this way too, but with the health insurance world, it's just like something they've thrown their hands up on. And again, I don't know if it's because it's not something that they deal with outside of, depending on your advisor, once a year. But it just always seems to be, I'm going to complain about it. But, I'm not going to do anything about it. Oh, and by the way, Amanda, I have another meeting at this time. So, although it's my second largest expense, hurry up and tell me what this is going to be.
Right.
So if you don't devote enough time to any one thing, then you're not going to be ready to do that.
That's such a good point of a call to action, right? It's like, what other thing would we do this with? If my car continuously broke down, I would do something about it. I wouldn't just throw my hands up and be like, I don't have time to deal with this. I would deal with it. If my bank...
At this point with health insurance, to that reference, somebody is pushing our car behind us. It's broke down. And we're still not handling it.
Right. You're like, hey, hurry up back there.
Yeah.
And, in every other, I think of it even internally. I'm a business owner, and you look at expenses and you're like, man, could we have gotten our supplies from a cheaper supply store? And it's like, you're looking at all of these expenses and like, I feel like other businesses like step over dollars to get to the pennies. And it's like, wait a second, healthcare is sitting there right there.
Yeah.
But it's like this taboo thing that they don't even think that they could do anything about.
Well, and maybe just, kind of what we've been discussing is because for so long, the only way they could was to make the benefits worse.
Right.
They just can't get over that there's a way to actually improve that. I mean, I have a client at 3 years into this has not only been able to only pay fixed costs, which I don't want to go into all the, nitty gritty of what all that means. But what I'll tell you is they've gone from, I think it was a $6,500 high deductible plan to a $4,000. We've lowered the out-of-pocket and deductible on their cheapest plan by $2,500 in 3 years.
I mean, again, you look at that, it's like, okay, it is better benefits at a lower cost is possible. When you think about let's just take that action. The employer has been able to put money in their bank account, right? They have not overspent on things. They've given their employees a better benefit, not only on paper, but in actuality. So that's lowered the risk. When you think about $2,500 for an average person making, X number of dollars, that's 5%, of a raise. I mean, most I'm having an employee conversation today about wanting a raise, and that's the number we're talking about. So it's like, wow, if you could save somebody that on just their health insurance, there's a conversation about that right there about, hey, that's a dollar amount you didn't have to spend. So it's such an interesting thing. So let's leave the audience with a tangible, Amanda Banner said this. So if you're talking to a room full of advisors, because I do know that as much as you do this as a profession, you do this and you have changed your way of outlook and now of like wanting to impact more companies and their employees. And there's an altruistic side of this. So I don't care. Like you're okay giving trade secrets out there. So if a room full of advisors is out there and says, hey, Amanda Banner's in her 25th year into this business, she was doing it the normal way for 22 and decided one day, what's the advice that you give to advisors out there that maybe are hearing this and like, they're teetering over. Is this real? Fact, fiction? How hard is this going to be? Man, I love going. It's Masters Week. I love going to the Masters with Blue Cross. They take me to the back. Talk to me about what's that piece of advice you give them.
It would be if you want to be the hero and not the zero, then maybe you should think about approaching your clients with this concept. And if you're in this business to really help people, you have a way to do that now, thanks to these vehicles. Also, I would say to advisors, it's not as hard as you think. Do you like getting a spreadsheet and going to market with every major carrier every single year to make sure somebody doesn't come in and save your client a couple grand and they're going to leave you? Because if you want to keep doing that, that's cool. But if you want to come in with one philosophy and constantly improve their benefits, then this would be something for you to consider.
Love it. Love it. And the room changed, and now the room is a bunch of employers. What do you tell them?
You have to look at your health insurance like you do everything else and act like a consumer and be proactive and find an advisor that you trust to look into new options. If you're a business owner, you didn't get there by not working hard and trying new things, and you can do that in this avenue as well and be successful.
Yeah. So, Amanda, if somebody heard you today and said, man, I want to know more, I want to talk to her, what's the easiest way for somebody to know who you are, get a hold of you, follow you, any of that stuff?
Yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn, visit our website, peoplesfirstinsurance.com, and all my contact information is up there as well.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you. As somebody who does make this a mission for sure, right? I have a podcast called Impact Healthcare. I started a business only swimming upstream like a salmon. I always appreciate when the old adage, and I shouldn't say this because you're female, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks. The reality of it is it takes the right dog to learn the new trick, right? And it's a have to. This isn't a you just wake up one day. This is altruistic. People like you get out of bed for a different thing, right? A different passion. They walk to the different drum beat, right? And so, on behalf of the industry, on behalf of me, obviously we're good partners. Thank you so much for just that willingness to learn, because at the end of the day, no innovation would happen in any industry if it wasn't for people who wake up every day wanting to learn something different. So congrats on the success that you've had and the evolution of just your own skill set.
Well, I appreciate that. And this old dog had a great trainer, so I appreciate you as well.
Awesome. Well, for the audience, thanks so much. I heard a podcasting class the other day that said if you're not asking people to share it, you're missing out. So this is the first time I think I am going to ask. The message you just heard from Amanda is the only thing that is stopping more employers and more employees and more communities from being impacted is the fact that not enough people learn. And the only way people are going to learn is if people hit share and like and get this out. So if you learn something today, pop this to somebody else that you might find value of it. We don't sell anything on this. This isn't about anything other than trying to impact healthcare. So Amanda, thanks so much for being a guest, and we'll see you guys next time on the next show. Thanks.
You've been listening to Impact Healthcare, people and strategies that are disrupting the health benefits industry with Lester Morales. Remember, the journey to getting 20% savings on your healthcare benefits starts with total transparency. Remember to subscribe to the Impact Healthcare podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.